thanks for joining us everyone. Today we're going to be looking at some different techniques for using cotton buds in painting. So this is a really easy thing to do. This is great to do with kids as well. It's really, it's not very complicated. It doesn't take a huge amount of skill, but you can be really creative with it. Really good on a rainy day like today as well. So I'm just going to start by showing you a really simple technique. I'm just using regular cotton buds. I've got some various acrylic paints and some black paper, white paper, and also some tin foil, just because it's quite easy to kind of scoop the paint up off this rather than out of a sort of palette or something. And also it's quite easy because it's smooth. You can sort of use the cotton buds to actually mix the colours together if you want to. So I'm just going to start by doing the kind of dot work technique that we've got here. So all you're really doing is just taking it just on the very end of the cotton bud, and you're just using it to sort of carefully place onto the paper. You can do this in any formation you want. You can go over it as many times as you like. If you're doing it on black paper, sometimes things like white don't show up quite as well the first time round, so you can always go in a second time and do a second layer. But saying that, it does look quite effective on black paper especially. And you can use both sides of the cotton bud as well, just so you're not wasting them. You can have a different colour on each side. And you can really just keep going with this and just do as many different styles as you like. Sometimes you can kind of just make it up as you're going along, or you can find some inspiration somewhere like Pinterest and actually kind of copy one that you've seen that you really like. There's also quite a lot on YouTube if you need a bit of inspiration for designs or ideas. This sort of dot work technique is really easy and actually really therapeutic as well. It's very sort of repetitive, but you do have to be fairly careful when you're doing it. So that kind of concentration is quite good for a mindful activity. You're doing it on black paper. You can choose some really lovely bright colours. And you can really just be as creative as you like with it. It's not something that you need to know a huge amount about. You don't need to be an artist, you don't need to know how to draw. It's just something that you can do to kind of pass the time. And you never know, at the end of it you might have something that you're really happy with and really proud of, you've put a lot of time into. Sometimes you will have to kind of switch and change the cotton buds just because they wear out slightly and some of the cotton will start to come off, so you don't get it quite as defined. If you'd like to use something that's more sort of reusable or doesn't involve kind of using a few of these and throwing them away, so something that might be a bit more environmentally friendly, you can use things like wooden skewers, so the ends of skewers, sort of lollipop sticks that are wooden or plastic, and then at least you can kind of wash those and use them again. This was the only thing I had to hand at the minute. There are definitely options for using these sorts of techniques and actually being able to just wash things rather than just throwing them away. And if you do have any suggestions for this, please leave us a comment below as well. So you can just keep adding to it really, just keep going. And there's other techniques you can use as well which kind of involve more than one cotton bud. So as you can see here, I've kind of grouped a few together and then you can create these sorts of effects. This is particularly good for trees, so anything like blossoms, which I'm going to just briefly show you now. This is a really lovely way of actually creating something that's looks more like something, so this is a bit more abstract and a bit more sort of a mindful exercise. Whereas if you want to use this technique for an actual painting or a piece of work, you can start by just taking a small paintbrush and grabbing a kind of darker colour or a browny colour. Anything you've got really, even something like a red would do. If you're doing it on black paper. Obviously if you're doing it on white paper you can do this with a black or a brown. So you really want to just start by kind of making the outline of a tree. So this doesn't have to be anything in particular. I'm going for a sort of cherry blossom tree today, so it's going to have a slightly thicker trunk with some longer branches. And then you can just sort of use your paintbrush to just drag that bottom of the trunk just so it blends in. And then just start adding some branches. Let's see if I can find a slightly darker. You can always mix a couple of colours together as well if you don't have the exact colour that you need. So I've just got a dark brown. brown, I'm just going to go in on top of this red just to darken it up slightly. And then start adding your branches in. These don't have to be too perfect because you're going to be adding the blossoms over the top, so you just kind of want something that looks like a good base for a tree. Two smaller branches at the top there. So just something like that, that's kind of a basic tree shape. Obviously if you want to do this on a different coloured paper you can. Once you start adding in the blossoms, you probably need quite a few cotton buds for, so I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got about 10 cotton buds here. You can tape them together if you like, which sometimes makes them easier to hold, sort of make sure they're all about the same level so they're flat to the paper, or you can just sort of twist them a bit and then hold them in your hand like a pencil. And then, as I mentioned earlier about the tin foil, you put two colours next to each other. So here I have a white and a red, and you can actually use the cotton buds on the sort of smooth tin foil to actually kind of mix that together, and you get some different colours on there, so they're not all exactly the same. And then all you need to do is just kind of go in over the top. And you can make some sides slightly darker just by dipping more into the red side of things. Add some shadows in there, and then if you want some highlights you can sort of dip one side into more of the white as well. And that's just going to give you a really lovely blossom effect. So it's very quick, very easy. And you can really do a lot with it as well. If you want to do different colours, you can do some really lovely sort of autumnal shades in this as well. So you could do some nice kind of oranges and yellow trees. And this could be in addition to sort of other pieces of work that you're doing at the same time. So you could have a sort of painting on the go where you think, oh, I'd like to do a tree there. And maybe you can just have a go at using cotton buds within your paintings as well, and just see if you can get some different kind of textured surfaces and different colour effects. We've been using a lot of different things recently, sort of other than paintbrushes, to apply paint to the surface, so it's good to get a bit of variety with sort of texture and things like that. And then if you want to, you can add a few along the bottom as if they've sort of fallen to the bottom of the tree. Just creates a really lovely effect. Really simple, really easy to do with kids as well, as I've mentioned. And if you did want to go back in with your paintbrush, if you feel like you've lost any of the sort of definition from your branches there, you can just sort of go in over the top and add a few of those in. Just kind of peeking out from behind. Give yourself a bit more kind of definition in that area. So, and then just another really brief one I'm going to show you on white paper this time. It's another floral piece. So this time all you really need to do is a white piece of paper, and you want some green paint to start with this one, or anything you'd like really. Green works quite well. Just for the beginning of this one, you're just going to paint, similar to last time, sort of base. This time is just going to be sort of stem. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of want a few different parts coming out. Can go back over this as well once you've finished. So something along those lines, and then again we're just going to go in with our collection of cotton buds. Just going to want a bit more red paint on there. And again, you can just kind of use your buds under the tin foil. And you can just start making some flowers from the stems. So I'm going to go in with a bunch of cotton buds first, and then I'm going to use individual cotton buds to go over and do some details afterwards. So I'm kind of doing these like a cone shape. You can already get some sort of multi-dimensional effects on these if you kind of have almost red on one side and white on the other side. So it's just a lot quicker to apply. But then once you've done that, if you would like to go in with individual cotton buds and put some kind of details in, you can do that. And you can also do it with your stems as well. So you can go in, layer this up. Again, the good thing about acrylic paint is you can sort of keep going in over the top and layering it and blending it as much as you like. Move you in a little bit so you can see the details of this one. So taking another cotton bud, if you want to go back into your green paint, maybe a bit of yellow paint, you can start using that just to add some more details to kind of individual parts of it. You feel like you haven't covered all areas, or you kind of want to make it look a bit more uniform. Really good for just creating some texture. In there if you want. You can just keep going in, layering it up. And just to quickly show you some of the techniques we were doing at the beginning on the black paper, you can also do on white paper. So this is the dot work technique. You can do this in so many different ways, so many different patterns. If you try to sort of keep the same cotton buds going with the same colour on, you don't have to sort of get rid of them, you can just keep them going. You don't have to throw quite as many away. Building this up. Go off and create different shapes. Just keep going in and adding stuff as much as you'd like to. as I mentioned earlier, this is definitely quite a sort of mindful activity, something that you don't have to think too much about when you're doing. Move that this way a bit so you can see it. So it's just that kind of repetitive thing where you can just keep applying paint to the paper and building it up. It's very similar to the mandala technique that we did. And just keep adding to it. So just to show you what we've done today, we've just looked at a few different techniques for using cotton buds in painting. So you can use it for this kind of dot work technique, which is really, really effective, I think, particularly on the black paper. You can also do it on white paper, and you can use the bunches of cotton buds to create these really lovely petal tree effects, and also for flowers as well. So do let us know if this is something that you try at home, if you have a go, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.